Good morning, welcome to this dawn chorus bird walk in Abney Park Cemetery in Hackney. I'm Andrew Peel, I'm a volunteer with the Central London RSPB group and the Marylebone Birdwatching Society, and I've been interested in wildlife since I was a child, and one of my favourite pleasures is to share my enjoyment with people. There's a variety of birds here, woodpeckers, tits, an owl, and there's also things like foxes, bats, butterflies and moths, so it's a really interesting place. We're going to walk around, see what birds we can hear and try and identify them. We'll stop every time we are near one singing or calling and just try and tell you what it is and why we know what it is. So we'll get started, and I'll try not to yak too much. This lovely liquid song is a robin. Very sweet, comes down the scale. Right, we're listening to the drumming of this bird, the great spotted woodpecker, which is a starling-sized bird. So instead of singing to attract a mate and keep a territory, it rapidly drums on a hollow bit of wood. But all this throaty rattling is magpie. But we've also got that sort of call, which is a stock dove. We'll try and get a little bit nearer that. It's a smaller version of a wood pigeon with no white collar and a dark eye. They nest in holes in trees. See if we can get nearer the stock dove. Crow calling. Right, the bird we're hearing now behind me is a song thrush. Loud, throaty song with repeats the phrases. We've also got a great tit, that's a two-note metallic D, 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 that's a great tit. And we've also got a black cap, which we will try and get a weeny bit nearer in a minute. It's another throaty song. It's a great tit. Birds tend to favour singing at dawn and at dusk, and it's thought that that's because the air's cooler, so sounds travel further, and it's a bit harder for most predators to find them in the dark, and obviously it's too dark for the birds to feed. Things like robin, blackbird and song thrush start earlier than the other birds. A lot of times when people think they're hearing nightingales, it's in an urban setting they're hearing blackbirds or robins because they sing in the dark quite a lot. We're now in mid-March. Peak dawn chorus is actually end of April, beginning of May. Lots of rattling magpies, robin. It's the song thrush, lovely throaty song, repeated phrases. It's actually in a different sort of phase of song, the song thrush at the moment. Lovely loud song thrush. We're going to try and get nearer the blackcap now. The blackcap is a little grey-brown warbler. When the male's got a black beret, the female's got a reddy-brown beret. They've got quite a nice song that's a mixture of throaty like a thrush and scratchy. They're a summer visitor, but some overwinter, and this is probably a bird that's overwintered here. Crow calling, great tit dee dee dee. Blue tit. This is the stock dove. Oh, we've now got the wren singing. So a really loud, trilling song. It's a tiny bird. It's smaller than the pictures, but it makes a loud noise for a small bird. There's a couple of magpies on the path ahead. They've been having a drink from the puddle on the left. So you might be wondering why this is a good place for birds and wildlife. The answer is because it's quite old, so there's been a chance for lots of different plants to develop. There's old trees. Old wood is good for birds in particular because of all the different insects it supports, and dead trees support all these beetle larvae and things. But also because there's a lot of ivy and holly, so there's lots of cover for things like wrens and goldcrests to creep amongst looking for insects. Things like redwing as well in the winter, which is a thrush that visits us from Scandinavia in the winter. Well, we'll try and get a bit nearer, but I'm hearing a wren doing that scolding alarm call. Just spotted a pair of blackbirds, but they weren't There was one singing to itself that, just had a laughing call coming, da 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 da, which is a green woodpecker. We'll see if we can hear that again. That was over this way. This is the wren. Oh, the green woodpecker calling again. Further off, it's but we may find it as we walk round because it's moved a little further off. It'll be on a trunk somewhere. We've got a goldcrest singing. There, it's a very high pitched sound that sort of spirals round. Okay, we're still trying for goldcrest. It's a bird that's quite common here. In fact, it's quite a common bird, but it's one that a lot of people aren't familiar with. They favour conifers, and it's a tiny little bird, the smallest bird in Europe, the size of this matchbox, and it weighs 5 grams, which is the weight of a 20p piece. That just give you some idea of what tiny little things they are. We've got robin singing again, that lovely coming down the scale liquid song. It's unusual in terms of British birds in that the female sings as well as the male. I think that's more in winter when it's about keeping her territory so they can get enough food. Got a loud trilling of a wren ahead of us. This ivy on the trees is good food for the birds because of the insects in it, because of the berries in it in autumn and winter, and also at that time of year they like to roost in it because it provides a bit of cover and warmth. Woodpecker holes in the tree. Woodpecker drumming again. This was much louder than the one we heard earlier. I think it's got a more serious bit of wood to hammer on. We've now got the green woodpecker and the great spot in the same stand of trees. The green woodpecker, this bird, has been doing the laughing call. It's laughing call, and the great spot is somewhere near it, hammering on a bit of dead wood. So these are the two common woodpeckers we've got in the UK. They've got a smaller cousin, a smaller relative that's the size of a sparrow, the lesser spot, that's becoming quite rare these days. But these two are quite common. You probably get great spots in your garden on nut feeders. So the green woodpecker, it's green because they mostly feed on the ground, eat ants. So they blend in with the grass. When you're trying to see them on a trunk, they quite often play hide and seek, go behind the trunk and just peek out to see what you're up to. We're now hearing our first blackbirds. Greenwood. Blackbird is a nice throaty song again. Thrushes generally have a rich throaty song. Magpie, nice close. Magpies are really colourful when you get a good view. There's all greens and purples. Oh, that's a great tip. Nice view of a great tit here. Parakeet calling. The stock dove's probably got a nest hole in that tree. Dark eye, black on the wing. So that's the call that we've been hearing, sort of a little bit ape-like to me, but yeah, we're about to vomit. Yeah. I'm surprised we haven't had a coal tit. I mean, this would be classic coal tit. Lovely loud wren. What's interesting is all bird songs do vary. The older males have richer songs because they've add to their repertoire, and that probably makes them more attractive to the female. But they also birds in different parts of the country and across Europe have sort of regional accents, you know, it varies as well. But they've also found recently that urban birds like great tits, for example, have made their songs shorter and louder because they're having to contend with traffic, you know, in contrast to birds in the countryside. So, oh, hang on, long-tailed tits in here. Right, we're going to concentrate first. We've got a black cap here, this sort of scratchy, this song here. Right, we're hearing a black cap. It's a little grey-brown warbler, and the male has a black cap. It's a quite nice throaty song, but a bit scratchy too. That was it. They've found that the birds that we have increasingly overwintering, the blackcaps, are the German ones. Instead of going to the Mediterranean, they're coming over here, and that's been since the Second World War. But interestingly, in that time, because they're eating berries rather than insects in the winter out of necessity, their beaks have got thicker and their wings are slightly shorter because they're not having to migrate. It's only from Germany to here rather than from Germany to Mediterranean. So that just shows the pace of evolution, that in that very short time space those changes have happened. So some of you will probably get them in your gardens on the feeders. That's been one way of them managing that change, is by using feeders in people's gardens. Well, we're now going for this song thrush, which is going for it big time. Beautiful, rich song. You can hear it repeats the phrases several times. It's not a wood pigeon, it's either a feral pigeon or a stock dove, but in either case it's pretty unusual to be that uniform dark colour. Oh, we've got a normal stock dove up higher up on the right. There you can see it hasn't got the white eye collar. I think maybe that dark one was an aberrant stock dove, as it were. I think I said earlier these birds have been nesting in holes in old trees in here. Song thrush still singing beautifully behind us. Such a rich song. It's almost sensual. It's so rich. Just doing a run through of what we've seen and heard today. One of the things we've heard a lot was the wren. Tiny little bird, very loud song, consists of two sort of dramatic bursts of song involving trills. The tail is always cocked up. We had a wonderful song thrush, which is a loud, throaty song with several repeated phrases, really rich, almost sensuous sort of song. You can hear that sort of nightingales are related, wonderful song. A lot of robins, song that probably a lot of you are familiar with. It's a lovely fluid song coming down the scale, very, very beautiful. As I said, it's unusually the females do sing as well, but that's generally in the winter to maintain a territory. Blackbird we hardly heard, again sort of nice throaty rich song that probably you guys know. Greenwood Woodpecker, despite being a woodpecker, they spend a lot of time on the ground eating ants, hence the colour. We heard that lovely laughing call. We watched and heard one laughing in the same stand of trees as a greater spotted woodpecker that was drumming. So here's the greater spotted woodpecker that some of you will have had in your gardens on the feeders. Starling sized bird, doesn't sing, it rapidly drums on a hollow bit of wood to that's its equivalent of song. That's mostly the birds that we heard today. We had great tits, variety of sort of two-note calls, quite metallic sounding. Often when the description you read is teacher, teacher. So that sort of two-syllable song. The other bird we heard, main bird we heard, was a blackcap, which is a little grey-brown warbler with a black beret. Again, quite a rich, thrushy song, but sort of a mixture of rich, throaty with sort of scratchy elements to it as well. So yeah, it's been quite rewarding. As I say, we're probably a month early in terms of the full dawn chorus, but it's been enjoyable to do and in quite kind weather, nice light. There are one or two things that are here and they're just not singing yet or weren't obliging. There's a little bird called a dunnock which has got a song, Squeaky Bike is the description for that, and there's a little bird called a coal tit, which is a bit like a blue tit sized washed out great tit essentially, but a lot of their calls sound like a speeded up great tit, and they favour conifers. They always need a few conifers in their habitat. And then as we move from spring to summer, the summer visitors will arrive, so there'll be some other warblers as well as the blackcap. There'll be the chiff-chaff, the bird that sings its name, chiff-chaff, chiff-chaff. And there'll probably be some other warblers either stopping or passing through, like a garden warbler, say. And there'll be things like swallows and martins around as well. So, as I say, peak, I think dawn chorus day is about May the 1st or 2nd, so that's the sort of peak dawn chorus in a month or so. And we probably hear some other things that again are around, things like jays and what have you. They're not songbirds, but they'll be doing calls and displays and things. There are various people such as myself who do guided walks. I'm planning to do a couple in about a month, so if you look up the website. But wherever you are, there probably will be local bird watchers locally will be doing it. But you can also educate yourself by using apps and CDs and things to learn bird songs. And I would say we all put ourselves down in various departments, like I'm rubbish at maths, but you hear people saying, oh, I don't know any bird song. Well, I think everyone knows some bird song. If you hear a crow cawing or a duck quacking, you know what they are. And similarly, I think you probably know robin and blackbird. But anyway, you know, you'll soon learn if you I mean, the best way really is to go out and see the birds singing, and that way you've put the visual image of the bird together with the song. But you will learn, you know, and it's more fun if you know, but it's just fun to hear the different songs and calls anyway. You know, it's something we all enjoy, and the more you know about something, the more interesting it becomes, and the more you realise there's always new stuff to learn. Birds, as I said earlier, birds' songs and calls vary. They change over time. They imitate other birds. You know, it's always interesting.
Do you mind me asking? Sorry to jump in. I'm quite, yeah, I walked, well, we walked through the cemetery quite a bit, and I've never yet seen a goldcrest. And, you know, I remember seeing one when I was a child and probably haven't seen one since. So I'm quite keen to be directed to where I'm, you know, I could stand and not necessarily guarantee a glimpse, but
Well, you have to persist really. But if you learn the song and the call, that's half of it. They've got a very high pitched song that sort of spirals round, so that'll tell you that you're near one.
right.
And they're often in conifers. Um, they're actually, ironically, they're quite a common bird. You know, once you start seeing them, you'll tune into them and you'll see them more often. But because they're partly like conifers. Conifers are quite dark, so that can make them a bit difficult. When you're peering up into a conifer, it's much darker than your average tree, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they are actually quite obliging. That you can be a few feet away from one, as long as you're not jumping up and down and shouting, they don't mind at all. They just carry on. They often hover underneath branches catching insects. So if you see something hovering about quite a lot, you know, a small bird, that's probably a goldcrest. But
Right.
as I say, if you learn the call off an app or a CD or something, that will help you.
Thank you. But do you mind me asking about the woodpecker while I've got you?
Cool. No.
I always thought that woodpeckers actually knocked on trees to actually get food.
You're right. Yeah, to make a hole or enlarge a hole to get at insect larvae and things. But then you'd only be hearing if you were close. It would just be a sort of tapping.
Right.
That drumming that you hear in late winter, early spring, is their equivalent of song, and that'll either be a great spotted, which is the one we were seeing and hearing, or a lesser spotted, which, as I said, is a much scarcer little sparrow-sized job. And then that's about territory and getting a mate.
So the Greenwood pecker doesn't do that.
No, but it does make a hole to nest in.
Yeah.
But spend most of the time on the ground looking for ants, basically.
Can I ask a question? Sorry, I'm with Richard. We, as he said, we walk around virtually every day, and I've noticed that the parakeets, which are just, their soliloquies are just beautiful, and they're in particular areas. Is that because they're territorial or because of the particular trees that they're in? You find them in certain parts?
Probably both, but I'd opt for the latter. They nest in holes in trees, so I suppose they're going to favour bits where there are nest holes in the spring and the summer. Okay. There is some controversy. Some people think they're an invasive species that is harmful to other, they displace our in quotes, hole nesting birds like woodpeckers and starlings and things. But I think, the jury's out on that. There's not been research I've seen that says that's the case. Yeah.
Thank you.
More of an observation than a question. I've just noticed recently, and I've not noticed them before, I keep seeing song thrushes on the ground, in more or less the same spot is clearly his or her territory. And I'm not noticed them in Abney Park before. I've heard them, but my eyesight's not very good. So for me to see a bird, it has to basically leap up and down and wave its arms at me. This one has been. It's come within a metre of me, and it's not worried at all.
No, well, I suppose, if they're this time of year, they're getting eggs and young, so potentially they're a little bit bolder because they've got to feed, the male's got to feed the female and the young later on. So yeah, I've noticed that in our local park. We've seen them more. I mean, they do mostly feed on the ground because it's worms and snails and things like that.
I remember them being all over our lawn when I was a kid in rural Hampshire, but not so much in London.
Right.
Absolutely.
They're one of our birds that uses a tool. They like snails, and they like find a flat stone to bash open the shells.
Andrew, you mentioned that you were going to do some dawn chorus walks.
Yeah.
Where are they listed? Or
I'm not sure they have been yet, but I can put it out. I mean, I'm doing one at Gladstone Park in Kilburn, and one on an estate in Swiss Cottage. These are sort of ones I do every year. So I can. Where will I list them? I don't know. All the normal places I list them. I'm hoping to do a couple at Abney, probably on the same day. I do a genuine dawn chorus one early doors, and then I do one at about 8:30, 9 o'clock, because I'm no longer a Hackney resident, so it suits me to do two on the same day. But obviously this at the moment we're all trying to work with the COVID restrictions, so there's all that. But I will publicize all these as and when they're firmed up and what have you.
I'm about to send out a newsletter to the MBS.
Okay, well, I shall get back to you ASAP, Marion.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just to say, we want Abney Park. The trust is the one who puts on events, and it is the council who owns the land. We're essentially still waiting for the council to give us the big thumbs up. You can do events. Once that happens, we're absolutely so just waiting patiently until that's the case.
For the first time recently, we have heard woodpeckers, the greater spotted ones in Northern Ireland.
Oh, nice, yeah.
But we don't have any green woodpeckers in Ireland at all, I don't think. Is that right?
I think you're right. Yeah, it sounds right to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been
so thrilling.
Sorry.
I was just going to say we were thrilled to hear this woodpeckers
Yes.
in Ireland for a couple of years ago for the first time.
Lovely.
In
yeah.
our part. Mm-hmm.
Good. They're nice birds, and they're one of those obliging birds that do call a lot and nearly always call when they fly. Mm-hmm. If you see a woodpecker flying, it's a very undulating flight. Some birds undulate a little bit, but a woodpecker, it looks like it's stop flapping, you know, great big dip and then up again. So quite distinctive.
Haven't seen it yet.
All right, all right.
Thank you. Also, sorry, just remembering, we did a walk with you a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago in Abney, my daughter and myself, and you said that something about fire crests. I don't think we have those in Ireland either.
You may do. I'd have to check, to be honest. Firecrest is a very like a gold crest. It's actually a slightly brighter bird. If you remember the picture of the gold crest we had on the film we've just seen, they've got quite a blank looking face. They almost look a bit dopey. It's quite a featureless face. The firecrest has more features on it and it has a bit of an orange shoulder as well. They're a sort of scarce breeding bird in Britain that's colonised in about the last 50 years, but they also people see them on migration and overwintering, and there's some almost every winter there are some overwinter at Abney and a few of the other old cemeteries in London as well. They're nice birds, but yeah, I'd have to be honest with you, I'd have to look up whether they do occur in Ireland. They probably do as a winter visitor, I'd imagine, but yeah.
Good. Thank you.
So I'll do a final call for questions. Yeah, if you're sitting on a question, now's your time. Yeah, don't go over question unanswered.
That's right.
But if not, and feel free to interrupt me if a question pops into your head. Just thank you so much for joining us this Saturday morning. It's pretty easy to stay in bed on a Saturday morning, so we really appreciate that you've logged on to watch it. I think buying your tickets helped support the Abney Park Trust, and as we say, struggled during COVID, so it really does mean the world that you'd come. And thanks again to Andrew for volunteering his time and expertise and making that great video. It was absolutely wonderful to watch. I was lucky to be there on the morning, so I got my own personal, dawn chorus tour. But the video came through really nicely, and yeah, the information was absolutely great. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Well, thank you. As you probably appreciate, and anyone who knows me, it's something I love doing. It's fun to share things. But also, I'd say I did emphasise it several times. But now and in the weeks to come, there'll be much more birdsong happening in places like Abney. To be honest with you, at times there we were sort of chasing after the birds a bit. There was less happening, and you'd have classic things of hearing something. Oh right, now we'll talk about this bird, and it would stop singing. But that's birding for you.
Right. Well, I won't keep any of you any longer. Thank you for attending. Hope to see some of you soon. And yeah, again, if you are local, stop by this morning at 11 o'clock. We have a Saturday morning stall. It'd be great to see you. Yeah, thanks so much, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.